Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Gotta say, I left this movie just feeling just bizarre. I felt like this movie was just some Easter egg movie to try to repackage something or to just go on and shove new merchandise everywhere. I don't know. Like, this movie was just so strange and had so many things about it that was like, why does this have to be a film? I did have fun with it. I did go on and like felt like, hey, like there's this character. I remember that character. Oh yeah, like, but here's the thing, I don't know exactly what audience this was trying to deliver to. Was it delivering to nostalgic people who had watched this show? Was it just targeting a family that is completely oblivious of what they're getting into? Like, I don't really get it. I don't really get the target audience of this movie. It's so just rando and bizarre. How we go on and this is like an Easter egg filled film where it doesn't feel like there's much of any effort put into it. It's just we need to just shove something out there so it exists. There's a part where even Chip is to immediately go on and just say like, hey, I just need to keep saying words to fill time. And that just feels like this whole entire movie. Just saying things just to fill time. And basically when they go on and they say, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm like, no, like, you could have actually fixed a better film. You could have not just like made me feel like this was not like an engine to chuck merchandise back out there of certain things that haven't been used over X amount of time, just to slap the word Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Like, they even go on and they have to explain to people like what other variations of Chip and Dale exist. And I'm just like, again, like, how could you put a kid in front of this movie and expect them to understand what's at all going on with this film? I think it would probably much appeal to the hardcore audience of the past rather than trying to get an audience whatsoever. I like to really have some fun goofy things go into this film just to put something out there just is like, it just feels like a waste. So with that said, I would have to go on and say that this is a awful film, just because no one needs to actually go on and see it. You can see it for the Easter eggs, you can have fun for whatever, but like after that you're just gonna want to just throw it away. Thank God that there isn't like a premium access fee for this, because a lot of people would probably get ticked off. More than likely, probably the real reason why they were to go on and do this was to realize that they were going to just chuck this out there. So that's probably the effort of like, well, hey, we can just chuck this out there because it doesn't really matter, because it's just going to be put out onto Disney Plus anyways. So we're not going to put this in theaters, because why would we? So yeah, like a movie meant for Disney Plus. So so let's go on and let's tee this movie up. So the teeing up part of this movie is to, of course, go on and have a realistic world teaming up with a cartoon CGI-like world. And so it kind of has the flavoring of Roger Rabbit, even to the point of us actually having Roger Rabbit in this movie somewhere, just infused. We tend to have like whatever kind of references that we just need just to weirdly have them in this film. But anyways, so really breaks down that Dale at some point was to be awkward in school. All of a sudden, he bumps into Chip one day, and they become the best friends. Eventually, become uh, like so popular together that all of a sudden they decide that they want to become actors after this, making it so they go on and try to get like certain gigs, certain commercials, certain quick extra spots on a popular show for that time period, and then all of a sudden they explode onto their own show, which is Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. All of a sudden, after it seems that there had been some massive success with that show, we turn around and we start to have Dale, who is just really interested in wanting to step out on his own because he is the lovable goof within between the two of them. And so he wants to go on and do his own thing temporarily, but it won't affect the Chip and Dale show, they are to think. Well, they would be wrong. So we go on and we have Chip and Dale that after the Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers show was to be canceled and all their friends are to go their separate ways, it seems that both Gadget and Zipper were to have gone on and had a plethora of kids, and it seems that Monterey Jack in this movie is to have a story that is to tie in to this thing here, and is to possibly get both Chip and Dale together to go on and find their friend at some point. So eventually it just becomes this like detective case that is to not be any like huge mystery, because if you were to have gone on and seen how the show was to have eventually broken down, you would go on and you would probably immediately have your own thoughts of like, well, like if things aren't broke, don't fix them. So, and eventually when we go into spoilers, we're going to go in to this much more in depth, hopefully for the most point. But yeah, there's going to be quite a few convention moments where we're going to see a cluster of interesting characters or interesting Easter egg items. Like weirdly in the background of one scene, there's like a Voltron and there's a bunch of other stuff. Not to mention some characters that are going to be sitting alongside Dale here and are to eventually be like, ooh, that character for X amount of minutes of film. But yeah, this movie, just bizarre. Uh, and there's a lot of times where it seems like there's a bootleggish like version of certain characters, which is like, why couldn't they have just gone on and used XYZ character? Because you couldn't have gone on and probably used them possibly because they have to give lines at certain points, and you can't just have a person go herd herd herd. Yeah, you probably need subtitles the whole entire time if someone was to speak. But anyways, with that said, I think we've taken too much time talking about a movie that is honestly not that good. So let's go out of our way to hopefully go into spoilers. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to break this all down because technically, besides it being a very difficult movie to just smack all out there, it's been a day since me watching this and reviewing it. So because for reasons I was just not in the best spot to go on, and when I was to jump on and try to do a review for this, just wasn't the best day. So anyways, with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into that double five time territory, because it's about that time again to just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the time we do spoil this movie. So really, in the very beginning of this piece, we have it to where again Dale is to be the focus character. I kind of like how they go on and they have, of course, Dale having to be in these like massive environments, and both Chip and Dale having to be these like way massive things that like we go on and have one point where Dale is to have to drive this like human car, and it just looks so bizarre. So Dale is to go on into this school, and it seems like he's immediately this outcast. He is to want to go on and do this weird pencil joke where he is to pretend that this pencil is in his eye, and no one laughed. Everyone just says, "Oh my god, that was gross." And here's the goofy thing. Really, I don't know how you would even be able to like see whatever he was doing because of how small he is. But we end up, I think we had a cow as a teacher in this weird wacky world that we live in, where we just see cartoon characters just pop out anywhere, and I don't know where all the references are, but I'm going to try to do my best. We have like MC Scat Cat at some point with the Apollo Duel music video that eventually just randomly pops up when we go on to like the dance place or the disco. Uh, but I'll get to that in a second here, or soon. So Dale is to go on and be an outcast to where no one wants to sit by him in the cafeteria, probably because simply he has a very tiny table, anyways. And so all of a sudden, we come to find out that Chip, being a chipmunk, just like Dale, is to go on and sit beside him, hey, how's it going? And like, you know what, like that joke that you did, like it was great and all, but like I don't think you did it right. Like I think there was some like stuff that you just needed to just kind of uh go on and fix that joke. So the funny thing of it is, like right at this point, Chip and Dale, uh at the very end of this movie, we also have Chip, who is to tell Dale that Chip was to be very much an outcast himself, and that Chip never really had friends. And when eventually something happens to Dale towards the end of this film, like we have to kind of harpen back at the beginning of this film, and so I'm just doing it now just to save time. So it seems that both of these characters were both outcasts and they found one another, and that led them to go and be so good as a duo that they went on to do this talent show. And after that, it seems like people just loved the both of them, that they went on and did some goofy commercial together, and that led to all of a sudden continuing to try to get extra roles, which weirdly landed them on an episode of Full House where every single person in the Full House is like singing and dancing along with Uncle Jesse's song, and the chipmunks just so happen to be in the background. There's no other cartoon characters besides Chip and Dale within the background of this Full House episode, so that just leads them to just like, man, like Chip and Dale are on some background of some TV episode, man, and they're the only cartoon character in there. Man, we need to give them their own show. We need to figure out something for them. So that all of a sudden exploded into Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. So and that show just blew up and just went the way they did, to where we have the whole cast, who is Monterey Jack, who is Gadget Hackwrench. Not very familiar of anybody of these characters besides, honestly, Chip and Dale. I was not a like I was kind of just a casual Chip and Dale character. Like I knew they exist. Like I was kind of like always interested in the show. And it's kind of funny, the end credit scene of this movie, we have like Darkwing Duck, which I honestly went back and recently watched a lot of Darkwing Duck stuff. And so like it was cool to have like an end credit scene with Darkwing Duck in it, because it's like Darkwing was like, yeah, we need a Darkwing Duck movie. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense also, to go on and just, if you're gonna reboot, you might as well reboot everything. But anyways, but we have Wrench and we have Gadget and we have Zipper, who of course were to go on and again, like, fall in love with one another. And we, weirdly enough, have it to where Zipper is to have that deep voice played by Dennis Haysbert. I was like, that's so weird. But so, and we also had the moment where Chip and or where Dale is to be like the narrator for most of this film, and he goes on and explains like, well, hey, if you've never really heard of what Chip and Dale is, you've probably heard of the Dancers, or you've probably heard of a number of other things. And I thought that that was like, okay, like, why do we have to go on and, like, I guess we're again still appealing to a certain audience at a certain time period throughout this film. But anyways, so after the red carpet success of Chip and Dale, which led to uh, it seeming that every day was a party between them, and Chip and Dale were to go off and kind of go to clubs and discos and stuff with MC Cat and Paula Abdul and Roger Rabbit and like a number of other just weird kooky references of a number of cartoons. And I still don't quite understand why we have Transformers at some point in this movie, but I guess we just oddly do for this time period. But I guess also it's freaking Disney. Disney can do whatever they want. So after all of that celebration, we immediately are to show some clips where both Chip and Dale, Dale is to always be the butt of the joke and is to get smacked on the head a lot, which I'm like, man, like, so we're still kind of like smacking somebody on the head. Like, I can just remember like Three Stooges when like that stuff was like a no-no. It's like, oh no, like we can't do that. Because like, but also think of this movie. We have people who are to smack their heads so hard that birds come out of their heads. I'm like, this is not the right. This is not an audience to go on and just, you know. I'm just worried about a number of families that are to go on and try to come after Disney because it's like, hey, you had a bird tweet thing, like, but it's kind of funny because they go to that joke later on, which I honestly thought was amazing, where we have Chip and Dale who are trying to smack their heads and have these birds come out to help them with this trap. But then all of a sudden, like, we have like the birds who are staying at home and they're getting a call, and the bird is like, well, I have to go, honey. And I'm like, yeah, like, this is freaking, like, that's like the funny bit. Like, there's a lot of stupid here, but man, are there actually some bits that I actually liked that were drawn out that were actually funny, but a lot of stuff was just stupid. Uh, honestly, within this film. We even have at points where we bring in the Seth Rogen character as Bob, and we have to reference like Pineapple Express as far as like his eyes and how they're like uncanny, because we'll get to that eventually. So now that I've wasted so much time here, let's get back to the film. So Chip and Dale, they're going through these parties, everything's being so successful. Chip and Dale are cutting cake, and everything's going swimmingly. Dale is assigned to go on and do Double O Dale, which is some weird James Bond ripoff show. And Chip is just like, well, you know what? That might go on and affect our show. Like, shouldn't you go on and, like, just, like, keep trying to keep our success in this one show? And Dale is like, well, no, like, I'm like, my agent is like blowing me up with all these offers that I have to go on and do. And we have like Dale who's getting this big massive phone that he's having to carry around. So Chip is thinking that there's a possibility that this spin-off that Dale is going to do is going to affect their show. Dale's like, no, I think we're going to be absolutely fine. Well, they'd be wrong. All of a sudden, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers is to get canceled, and Dale never even went on and did a pilot show for the Double O Dale show. So that all of a sudden leaves Chip now going to do things for insurance because we have to do the cliche-ish, like, well, hey, when something, like, you can always just go on and do insurance for the rest of your life, right? So do some like donkey job that like no one is to probably ever see you again. So Dale is to go on and he is to do conventions. And he is to live off the past of Chip and Dale's, and he is to weirdly have gone on and gotten this thing called CGI surgery, which basically makes him look the way he does now. So the reason why both of these characters are actually different is because Dale was to eventually choose to be CGI'd, where Chip was to want to keep his cartoon persona. Just like randomly, just one or the other. They're just plopping down here. They're doing CGI cartoon stuff. Man, does Disney just have money to burn with this project. So we have Dale, who's at this convention, and he is consistently tweeting and doing all these things to amp up his fans, to eventually have him go on and get signings upon this convention. Come and turn around and find that Dale is to be shoved with some other characters that we've barely ever have really heard of. Like we have Ugly Sonic, who is there. We have Tigra, who I guess had who is a actual Marvel character that had some animated series briefly for some goofy reason. And so we go on and we have Dale, who of course is to go and wait for anybody to go and uh, do like any autographs for him. And so we also see Baloo in the background. If you guys remember Jungle Book, like bare necessities, a simple like he's in the background weirdly just singing along. And so it's kind of funny because we have like Baloo, who's like CGI'd in, but the actual voice that does him isn't the correct voice, because the actual person who should have been doing that voice was actually Bill Murray, I believe, from the Jungle Book movie. But instead, it's just like, well, like let's just get this guy who was Baloo in the past, and yeah, we'll just makeshift, and who really cares? We just need to go on and just get this done. So there's a lot of Easter eggs within this convention, and then eventually, when they keep going back to it, there's just a lot of Easter eggs within this movie. So we have it at one point where we have Dale that was to basically be a massive collector of all the Chip and Dale stuff, to where he has a whole entire collection of every single episode that they ever done. He would have this whole like garage of everything that is to be Chip and Dale's related. He is to have a number of Pog collections, but he couldn't go on and get the one Pog. If you guys don't know what Pogs are, they're little kind of circular things that eventually they showcase within the movie. It's another kind of one of those like 90s things that eventually I even had Pogs myself at some point. So like I think at some point they had like Power Rangers Pogs, which I collected because I was into like Power Rangers anyways. And so like I never really understood what Pogs really were, and I was like, this is just the weirdest thing that I didn't really understand, but like the craze happened. Like I remember Pogs, like they would have like President Pogs. Like I don't know why. It's just like I guess things to try to be like informational and whatever. Do you remember any Pogs? Let me know in the comments below. So I never collected Pogs. I don't even know what he's talking about. So we have Chip and Dale, and so we have Ugly Sonic and we have Tigra that are mentioning to Dale. It's like, well, hey, like, why don't you have like Chip here doing these like convention spots? And because they're like, well, hey, like, what if like Chip just really wants to like you guys would probably have a lot more fun if you guys went together and be a duo. Like it would make a lot more sense. And Dale's like, Well, yeah, like it probably could be. It probably could make a lot of sense. So we all of a sudden are going to find what Chip is doing. So Chip is doing insurance, and it seems like he is to really being really be enjoying it. And so he has to go on and find all these CGI'd and cartoonish characters that he is to go and do his job with weirdly. And then when he is to go on home, he has to go on and see all these number of different goofy films at some point. The Fast and Furious babies and uh, Goofy, some other like things that were just strange and bizarre. But then he looks at Batman versus ET and is like, "Oh, well, that looks really good." And he goes home and he sees Batman versus ET, and weirdly, ET is apologizing to Batman, and Batman's like, "That's fine." And then like the movie ends, and Chip was to go on and watch this movie bizarrely, just just weird, just weird. So we have it where Chip is to be completely alone. He doesn't have like a Chip wife or whatever. He just has like this massive dog that he is to consistently feed, and he's very protective of his dog to where he is to make these jokes at some points if he is to die via what he's doing here, that he wants Ellie, who is eventually going to be a detective in this movie, because we just have to weirdly just have a young detective that really doesn't make sense for this woman to just start working with these guys, because it honestly feels like Ellie is far too young to be it. I don't know. Like it feels like they like casted like they should have casted a much older person, but instead they tried to appeal to probably whoever was to be the age of original Chippendales when it came out, but still. So at some point, like Chip is to be living his own life, and he is to get a call from Monterey Jack, who is to have been another character from Rescue Rangers. So Chip is to get a call from Monterey Jack that is to lead Chip to just go on like, "Hey man, like I'm gonna definitely help out my friend, whatever he needs." And so Chip is to make his way to find out that it seems that Monterey Jack had gone crazy with cheese to the point where he has to chase down specifically scented cheese. Weirdly, as if it's some like metaphor for drugs in this film. So Monterey Jack had spent all of his money on cheddar, but he has no bread, and it's goofy analogies and whatever. So that all of a sudden leads to have Chip bump into Dale because Monterey had also called Dale also, and so that's how they bump in together weirdly. So we have it to where Monterey Jack is so afraid that he goes on and tells Chip that he doesn't want to go on and have to deal with Sweet Pete because Sweet Pete may go on and take Monterey Jack and make him a bootleg character that he's just going to recycle him into a number of movies over and over and over again until he can get the money from this guy, because I guess Flounder had gone on and suffered the same fate. We had guys named Bob and Jimmy, who eventually we'll see later as some polar bear and some Viking character, go on and try to steal away Flounder, and Flounder was desperately trying to give them this fork and try to pass it off as uh, some little mermaid item, just like, "Hey man, this is a real McCoy. Like, hey, how about I sell this to you?" So they went on and they erased Flounder's mouth, and they put him into a number of bootleg Little Mermaid movies, forcing him to go on and eventually make them money. And so Monterey Jack is just kind of worried that he's going to suffer the same fate as Flounder did. And I'm like, flounder, really. Okay, Disney, you're just having fun with your characters now. So, come to find out, we have, of course, where Monterey Jack is to be stolen away between these men, and there's nothing Chip and Dale can do. And so now we have it to where all of a sudden we have a detective called Captain Putty, who is to be basically a rip-off Gumby character, which I kind of found, I was like, like there's something fun about this. Like I honestly wish that they would go on and do like a Gumby kind of revival or something, or just like kind of a fun one-off thing, but make it like for like an adult audience. That would be kind of funny. Just do some Gumby thing, but it'd be goofy Gumby. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause we kind of do this, but like we can still have a lot of fun with this kind of character. But again, it would probably be very challenging and difficult thing to do. Difficult. Anyways, pushing on. So Captain Putty is to be J.K. Simmons, which I'm like, okay, like, man, I'm seeing a lot of J.K. Simmons lately. I just saw like some episodes of Night Sky, and Night Sky is actually a pretty fun show. Eventually, at some point, because I saw this at possibly like the worst time to like, I'm like, okay, I want to go on and review this show, but I don't have the brain and I don't have the energy to just review this. So I saw it, and then I was like, okay, eventually I want to go on and at some point review this show. So hopefully I'll be able to do that soon. So, but moving on. So Captain Putty is to have like fingerprints, and he's just like smack his fingerprints and to chop a little bit of his self off to have somebody like put that print on there, because he's basically silly Putty. They actually make that joke within the film. So it seems like Captain Putty is doing his own investigation, but it seems that Dale is pushing Chip to go on and do their own investigation. And so that really just leads to have both Chip and both Dale go on and find that same piece of cheese that Monterey Jack has to have before, to lead Chip and Dale into this dumpster to find where exactly this business is, which is to be a cheesemonger named Bjornson, who is to basically be like a ripoff of the Swedish Chef, obviously. But then again, the Swedish Chef would normally be like herd, and you can't go on and have that kind of character with subtitles. I swear, if they would have done that, I think a lot of people probably would have been ticked. Maybe you would have finally just had it to where like herd, and then like the Swedish Chef could have finally just talked, and then like that would have been like a funny joke to eventually just put into the thing. But anyways, so Chip and Dale are making their way to a place called Main Street, and this part is kind of funny because Dale is to talk to Chip and say that Main Street is a horrible place, that there's so many like underhanded things going on. He's looking at everybody and he's saying like, oh, that shoe shiner, like that guy, there's something wrong with him. And like Dale is going on and saying that all of this place is like heavily a shady place, and Chip is like, I don't know what you're talking. I think that you're just making things up. So that everybody here has to do something shady because that guy is. So they make their way through Main Street to then find Bjornson, who I think actually the voice of this character probably has to be like the guy from like Key and Peele. And if I'm wrong about that, then I'm wrong. I think he also recently did The Bubble recently. But the voice sounds so familiar. If I'm wrong about that, then it's like, okay, well, because that guy's been kind of been used everywhere also. So so we go on with this film, and so Chip and Dale are to ask about cheese, and Bjornson's like, okay, sure, yeah, like I have plenty of cheese and whatever. And so, but Chip is like, well, yeah, but we need some stinking cheese. See, some stinky cheese. So Bjornsson it starts to change from this level of a guy to like, are you guys a cop? Like, are you cops? And they're like, no, of course not. And he's like, oh, okay, come in. So Bjornsson is to go on and take these guys into some like weird back alley of his shop. I say weird back alley just because it looks like a very much more shadier spot than what I originally saw. So all of a sudden we have one of the rats who are eating way too many things of cheese, and Bjornsson is like, well, hey, like this isn't Baskin Robbins, you don't get free samples. So we go on, and Bjornsson eventually is to go on and eventually be dealing with Chip and Dale, which really just transitions to Chip and Dale trying to ask Bjornsson about their friend, and that now transitions to Bjornsson just wanting to push Chip and Dale to get to be bootlegged just like Monterey Jack. And so Bjornsson takes Chip and Dale and is putting them in a van so that way they can go on and see their friend supposedly. But really that just leads them to of course meet with a guy named Stinky Pete. So uh so or Stinky Pete, Sweet Pete. So we transition to have both Chip and Dale meet with Sweet Pete, and they have to go to the uncanny part of the world where you would go on and see a lot of glitches or certain characters walking into hydrants because they can't move anywhere, they're just stuck there. So we now have to make light of the fact that Sweet Pete is to have a number of products that never actually got sold, kind of like how Chip and Dale at some point had a perfume that is to have a certain aroma that Monterey Jack is to consistently have because I guess he must have a huge quantity of it. So Chip and Dale are to go on to this uncanny place, and so they meet up with a guy named Bob, who is to be this big Viking-looking character that's played by Seth Rogen, who is not actually looking at them directly because he can't. So Chip and Dale are to ask, like, is he talking to us? Is he looking at us? And he's like, well, hey, you're looking at me, looking at you. So, like, we have these weird, bizarre jokes. So Bob is to take both Chip and Dale to the location to speak with Sweet Pete, who is actually Peter Pan, who had gotten older. So, for the Peter Pan movie, we had Peter Pan being this young kid who was never age, and come to find out eventually Peter Pan did age. So, it seems that nobody was to ever hire Peter Pan again because he actually got older, and so he was stuck eventually making a bootleg of Peter Pan, and so he decided to turn around and just make an industry of it to make a number of bootlegs from a number of characters so that way he can go on and just make this money in bootlegs and all these goofy weird things, all these tweakingly slidingly different variations, kind of like how you would see like Robin Williams' Hook later on in the years, where we have a much older Peter Pan compared to the original, to just try to just do something different, to tweak something to appeal to different audiences. So we go on, and so Chip and Dale are forced to be talking to Sweet Pete, and we have it, of course, where we find out that Sweet Pete has a certain kind of smartphone or smartwatch, and Dale is to have the same thing. Like, oh yeah, you have a smartwatch. Oh, that's great. because eventually that's going to weirdly come into play later on, because a lot of random stuff just comes into play randomly later on in this film. So we consistently have it one way or the other where Chip and Dale are to need to forcibly be edited or tweaked somehow, and eventually uh, we have it to where Chip and Dale are to be chucked into this machine to possibly get bootlegged, and Chip ends up with a Snoopy ear, but then he goes off and like pulls that out, and then he pops his ear back out, and I'm just like, why couldn't they have done that earlier? So not only that, why did they have to go on to talk to Ugly Sonic about how to kind of get everything taken care of in this film? I thought that was just the weirdest thing. We not only have Ugly Sonic in this movie as a convention person next to Tigra, but then on top of that, we also have him with like the helping out this whole case, as if because he's weirdly like Ugly Sonic is weirdly going on and doing some FBI show. We're gonna go on and have a spin-off of that of like, hey, yeah, I want to see Ugly Sonic in a FBI show. That seems great. So let me pause here for a second. I'm sorry, there's a bug flying around the room the whole entire time. So, and it just started to get to the point where I was getting very distracted because of it. So I was just like, I was trying to, so my apologies. So, we have at some point both Chip and Dale desperately trying to get edited because Sweet Pete is to want to bootleg them. And one way or the other, we turn around and have it to where it seems that Chip and Dale can't turn to Captain Putty, but it seems they turn to Ellie, who is actually a big fan, supposedly, of Chip and Dale. And so they turn to like the younger cop that had just got onto the force and this and that, because we have to go with the younger detective. But then there's a whole reason for that, anyways. So, but we have Chip and Dale who are to scramble away from Sweet Pete, but then they have to turn around and figure out where Sweet Pete is. So that way they can track his smartphone or his smartwatch. So they have to go to this Russian bathhouse, weirdly, to not only go on and have more CGI characters and do some awful rap that Dale and Wales and all this garbage that makes no sense to again eat up more time. So let me get this straight. So you have to eat up time doing a rap, but the rap is just garbage. And so you have to do this whale, Yale, snail, blah, 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 everything that rhymes with Dale. And Chip is to mention how like he like loathes and hates any character that is to go on and eventually rap now, because that's the new thing. To where the point where Chip is to see some movie going on with the Chipmunks where all of a sudden they're rapping, and Chip is like, well, of course, that's the only thing that you can do now, right? Is you just have a number of characters that all have to rap, bizarrely. And so now Chip is to have to go on and be forcibly that same character that is to have to rap because this snake is just weirdly some big fan of theirs. And so, of both Chip and Dale. Because at first, we go on and we have Chip and Dale who are to supposedly disguise themselves as rats and are to come into this Russian bathhouse saying that they're plumbers and that they are going to help this Russian bathhouse because I guess there was some appointment that was to be called. And both Chip and Dale are to have these New York accents and are to sneak their way into the Russian bathhouse, as well as we have to go on and see a number of Easter eggs here. Like we go on and see Scrooge McDuck diving into this this jacuzzi coin thing. Tub, weirdly, because we have to keep going on and doing that same kind of stuff here. So, as well as when Bob is to kind of fall over in the convention, he is to meet up with every single other Seth Rogen voice, and they're to talk for a moment, just like, hey, who is this guy? Yeah, who is that guy? Yeah, who like, and they're all Seth Rogen, and so they all meet at the same time. Uh, they go on and have like the one character from The Lion King and the one character from Kung Fu Panda and the other character from some other random thing that I don't remember what it was. So that's great. Oh, Monsters versus Aliens. The one blue blob that eventually was to be in that movie, which I actually did like Monsters versus Aliens, but like to go on and see all the spin-offs that came after, I'm like, okay, like it was a goofy movie, but then they turn around and they're trying to like make a bunch of like other things after it, and I was like, that's no. Like you had a goofy hit there. It was a one-off thing, but then trying to rebound from that just doesn't make sense. Just because it was a goofy concept. So anyways, we go through this Russian bathhouse. They find the smartwatch, and they scramble out of there. We have it to where I guess Dale was to have had a smartwatch before, and he tried to make this like little butt thing every single time so he could like see that. So we have it to where Sweet Pete, uh, when eventually they retrieve his watch, and we have Ellie who's tied to this. And it seems that Chip and Dale are unsure whether or not that they can actually trust Ellie, because it seems at some points they don't even know who to trust, because Chip and Dale at some point are to go on, after getting the smartwatch, they are to go and find out that Captain Putty might be going on and working on the villain side of things, because he might be getting some kind of payout or something like that. So it seems that Chip and Dale are kind of getting like, I don't know who we can trust, because it's always been the same person every single time. And so when Chip and Dale go and give things to Ellie and are talking about her past, and it seems that Ellie, where she was to go in and live, was the one place that didn't have Chip and Dale on TV. And Ellie was like, well, hey, like, yeah, I had like a family member of hers, I think it was like grandma, like tape every single episode and like send them to her. And we have to her Chip is like, I don't know about that. Like, I think that she might be lying to us. And Dale's like, no, I believe her. I think that she's a true legitimate fan. And we have it at points in time when Ellie is to go on and like reference certain episodes if she as she knows it, and so on and so forth. So Dale's like, no, I think that she's a legitimate fan. So come to find out, when Chip and Dale are to go into this garage, and Dale is to have all this memorabilia, it seems that Chip is to have the one Pog that Dale doesn't have, which is the Pog that has all the group together in one photo, where it seems that Dale is to have all the other ones. So we have it to where Dale is to mention that he's missing this one Pog, and so Chip is to go on and tell Dale, it's like, well, hey, like, here's the one Pog you're missing. Here, complete your collection. And Dale is to go on and just be frustrated and give this Pog back to Dale to complete his collection. And Chip is like, what are you talking about? I don't have a collection. Because, yeah, like, Dale has all the collections of all the stuff. And just weirdly, he's missing that one Pog that Chip has. Bizarrely. So, and there's so much going on in this movie for some goofy reason. So, just to kill time. So, we have it, of course, where now that they are to start to put the pieces together of where Sweet Pete has gone on to, Chip and Dale are to have Ellie like consistently go with them to these locations, which is again to have them be fairly stuck into some editing machine, like we uh, would possibly have alluded to earlier and are to now mention now. So we go through this editing machine, and Chip is to lose his ear and now have a Snoopy ear, weirdly. Like, I mentioned that before, but I'm mentioning it here now because things. So we have it to where they go through this whole entire editing machine, and it seems that Dale is going to at some point been grabbed because this editing machine is a unsavory thing. Like, towards before, like, there's certain like editing machines where like other ones look very nice, and then this one looks unsavory and looks dangerous. So after both Chip and Dale make it through this editing machine, they find the mustache of Monterey Jack, realizing they're like, oh my god, so he has been taken here. We just need to figure out exactly where he is. So, come to find out, at some point, they need to eventually figure out where these guys are shooting all these films, which is going to help them figure out exactly where Monterey Jack is, because I guess he's going on and doing all of these movies. And plus, there's like a 48-hour time period for them to go on and try to scout and find out where Monterey Jack is. Here's something that's very goofy. What they end up eventually doing with Monterey Jack doesn't even make sense. They just make a weird, goofy Dumbo character out of him, and it, like, again, I'm baffled by that. It just feels like they just needed to just like shove things in certain directions. Like, oh hey, here's a slightly different Monterey Jack. Bizarrely, I don't know, but I'm sure there's probably going to be a toy out there somewhere of Dumbo Monterey Jack, for whatever reason anyone's going to want to go out of their way to buy that. I don't know for the life of me. So again, toys galore being shoved out. So really, so we go on and we get pushed to having Ellie going with Captain Putty because he is to have a case for her, and so he needs her help. And eventually, Chip is to be taken by Sweet Pete and his cronies and Jimmy and Bob, while they're trying to go through this, where Chip and Dale are to go through this convention, because Chip and Dale are to go on and ask Ugly Sonic about his FBI connections, which gets them right back to the convention. So we have Chip and Dale running around through this convention. We see Voltrons and all kinds of other cool, interesting things. We see Aunt-Man instead of Ant-Man, because I guess at some point Paul Rudd was to mention that at some point he was going to have Ant-Man be Aunt-Man, and that he was going to be loved by aunts was going to be his superpower. I'm like, just the money that they just blow on this. God, and plus also that just makes like Ant-Man a much just really kind of character. But hey, like, we're really looking at it for Paul Rudd to just get a check by Cameo. I wouldn't have said no to that. I wouldn't have said no to something like that. I would have said, heck yeah, I'm going to be doing like 10 seconds of work, and you're going to pay me how much? Great. I'll because I'm sure like Ant-Man is working on, or I'm sure Paul Rudd is working on Ant-Man anyways, so it was probably just like, hey man, like, do you want to go on and be in this movie for like 5 seconds? And here's the money you're gonna get from that. I would go on and be like, heck yeah, like, set me up, like, because I'm sure he's already doing Ant-Man anyways, so it was an easy thing to do. So Chip is to be taken from this convention as we see Voltrons and all kinds of goofy things that are to be plopped in this convention. as we run off and have Bob chasing after Chip and Dale with this huge, massive axe of things. So Chip is to get grabbed, Dale is to have to rescue Chip, and so that's when we get the reveal of who the real villain is in this story, supposedly, besides Sweet Pete, who is to actually be the villain, but there's another villain that we don't know about. So Chip is to be duct taped to this kind of this board of sorts, and Ellie is to get to eventually meet up with Chip, and now realize that her partner is to now be on the side of the evil one, Sweet Pete. And so we have it to her, like, I guess the consistent pattern upon Chip and Dale is to always not trust the police officer or the detective. And it's like, well, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's what they say in here. I'm like, okay, whatever. So we have Captain Putty that is to now go up against his own partner. And this actually was a pretty cool spot. Like, the fight between both Ellie and Captain Putty was actually really fun. I liked this, where like she was trying to defeat him by any means necessary, like going on and like grating through him, or eventually she uses this fire extinguisher and freezes him and then breaks him, kind of like in Terminator 2 or Demolition Man towards the end there. And eventually she kind of plastic bags him and is to go on and arrest him, which I thought was really cool. But we then turn around and we had this whole like thought of that Ellie may be on the bad side. But when we have it where Chip is to eventually be taped here and Ellie is to have to tell Dale what's going on through this phone to kind of cryptically tell him, we have Ellie who's mentioning a certain episode, and so Dale is still at home trying to figure out what to do, and he goes through this entire Chip and Dale's episode, and he's like, oh my god, like this show still holds up. Yeah, of course he would, because you want to go and resell that upon Disney Plus. So Dale is to mention how, like, oh my god, like I figured it out by some bizarrish way. That Dale is to mention he's figured out that like people are tied up and people are in danger, and that's weirdly what he comes off bizarrely within watching this episode. That now he has to go on and jump into his car, his goofy car that can't start, but it's like a human size for a chipmunk. So now we have Dale scrambling to find some weird goofy car to... Or no. Dale goes on and has to meet up with Gadget and Zipper to see all of their kids, to then have them go and fly him in, shoot him off some firework thing, and have him land into this place to where he can rescue his friends. Why did they do this? I don't know. It's a goofy thing to reincorporate all these characters, to reunite them together so they have something to do in the show. So, Chip and Dale. So, we have Chip and Dale get back together, and so it seems that all of a sudden we are to push Sweet Pete in to getting bootlegged or edited, because Sweet Pete was trying to put Chip and Dale into the editing machine, and he was thinking about all the possibilities, all the goofy possibilities. He can go on and edit all these characters and make Chip and Dale slightly different, but instead it ended up that Sweet Pete ended up getting edited instead. So now Sweet Pete is to be edited, and he is to have this like cannon for an arm. It looks very like Mario Brothers-esh, which I think a lot of people are going to naturally assume that it's like, oh, is there going to be some bizarre Mario thing that Disney is going to do at some point? Because wouldn't that be cool? Because supposedly I think people were saying that like Chris Pratt at some point was going to be Mario for some goofy freaking reason. Anyways, So possible cannon arm, as well as transformer leg, and then weird cat face that looks like Kung Fu Panda, like the character from Kung Fu Panda. And then we just have like the hodgepodge of all these other kind of weird, like fused together concoction of edited Sweet Pete that is now chasing after both Chip and Dale. And so we have just Chip and Dale having to figure out a way to take down this edited Sweet Pete. So at some point they have it where Ugly Sonic and the FBI are coming in to thwart Sweet Pete. And we go on and we have Chip and Dale, who at one point Dale is to have to dodge, or Dale is to have to kind of jump in to try and protect Chip because there's a cannon coming right into Chip, and so Dale is to try to jump in front of his friend to save him. And Dale ends up getting hit with this cannon, but then weirdly, Dale is to somehow have a protective thing, which is to be the Pog that protects him from this hit, this blow. But Chip is to go on and on about how he was always an outcast and misfit. Nobody liked him. But then all of a sudden, when Dale met with Chip, all of a sudden everything changed forever. And we have to go on in this sad song about Dale possibly dying here. But it seemed that that wasn't really the case because Chip was to, or because Dale had the Pog. So yeah, so eventually the weird Sweet Pete character is to get taken away and arrested and all that jazz. Really just quickly rushing through the rest of this because I've already spent an hour talking about this movie and I think that this movie is an hour and a half anyways. There's so many Easter eggs and so many things going on here, trying to rush through it. So we go on, and afterwards the Chip and Dale and the Rescue Rangers are to reunite and walk off into the sunset, and Ellie is to arrest her partner. And so we then go on and have like we consistently have both Chip and Dale who are always thinking that they're going to get some reboot or they're going to get some kind of thing, and it never really and truly seems to really happen because this is the reboot. This is the thing. This is what they're doing. So yeah, like that is to really just be the wrapping up of it all going on, and possibly having them going back to this convention and do all these things for fans and everything like that, and just kind of wrapping the movie all up. With that said, I think that covers most of this movie, but let me pause this for 1 second. All right, so reflecting back, because I think everything is covered besides the end credit scene, which was the kind of Darkwing Duck thing when we had all of the Rescue Rangers going on and doing their thing. We had Darkwing Duck who's kind of shouting like, "Darkwing Duck, what about Darkwing Duck?" And I guess so. Like, I'm sure probably Howard, basically Darkwing Duck is probably going to become like the Howard the Duck kind of character, kind of goofily being involved in certain other projects until eventually they make a Darkwing Duck something, as if people probably still care. So, but I thoroughly enjoy Darkwing Duck. So, one thing that I forgot about, the first time that they went through and met with Sweet Pete, they eventually got flushed down the toilet and they had to go through the sewer system, and the guys had to try to get Chip and Dale through the sewer system. That's one thing that I forgot about. We Also, the thing that I mentioned before about the whole Tweety Bird thing happens towards the end of the film, and they end up using the Tweety Bird thing as a trap to net their villain, and that's how they end up beating the villain in the end of this movie. And also with Ugly Sonic, they bizarrely had a thing about Sonic's teeth in this movie also, where whenever he was to open his mouth, people are going ugh, and they were just so like attracted by it. It was bizarre. So I think other than that, I think most of this was covered. Otherwise, there was probably some slips and some trips somewhere through this movie, but I think if anywhere I was to kind of re-reference certain things, from like there was a lot of stuff that just felt like why couldn't they have just done this movie a lot faster? Because it feels like we were going back to things a lot within this movie. It just felt very odd. Hence why I was getting kind of confused in certain areas and certain parts and certain beats. But other than that, I think most of this is now covered. I think I'm fine with just going on and calling it a day. So let me know in the comments below how you felt about Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, where you thought that this movie was freaking bizarre, because I did. So with that said, I'm just gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Goodbye, buddy. Hopefully everything was covered by me, because there's just a lot of just goofy stuff that go into this film, to where it was obviously a thing to get confused. It was kind of funny, the one reporter in this movie who was like this black and white reporter, and he was like, black and white news. And I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, other than that, a lot of fun this one. So I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.